Today I'm going to read a story by one of my favorite authors. It's Roger Hargreaves. Roger Hargreaves started his career as a cartoonist until one day when his son Adam said, "Daddy, what does a tickle look like?" And Roger Hargreaves drew this character called Mr. Tickle. So we can see from the front cover of the book that Mr. Tickle has really long arms and he's holding his hat in his little hand. Mr. Tickle by Roger Hargreaves. It was a warm, sunny morning. In his small house on the other side of the forest, Mr. Tickle was asleep. You didn't know that there was such a thing as a tickle, did you? Well, there is. Tickles are small and round, and they have arms that stretch and stretch and stretch. Extraordinarily long arms. So right away, Roger Hargreaves tells us the setting of the story. It's a warm, sunny morning in a small house in the forest. As I'm reading, you can listen for the characters in our text. Mr. Tickle was fast asleep. He was having a dream. It must have been a very funny dream because it made him laugh out loud, and that woke him up. He sat up in bed, stretched his extraordinarily long arm, and yawned an enormous yawn. Mr. Tickle felt hungry, so do you know what he did? He reached out one of his extraordinarily long arms, opened the bedroom door, reached down the stairs, opened the kitchen door, reached into the kitchen cupboard, opened the cookie jar, took out a cookie, brought it back upstairs, in through the bedroom door, and back to his bed. As you can see, it's very useful indeed having arms as long as Mr. Tickle's. Mr. Tickle munched his cookie. He looked out of the window. Today looks very much like a tickling day, he thought to himself. So later that morning, Mr. Tickle had made his bed and cooked his breakfast and set off through the forest. As he walked along, he kept his eyes very wide open, looking for somebody to tickle, looking for anybody to tickle. Eventually, Mr. Tickle came to a school. There was nobody around, so reaching his extraordinary long arms up to a high window ledge, Mr. Tickle pulled himself up and peeked in through the open window. Inside, he could see a classroom. There were children sitting at their desks and a teacher writing on the blackboard. Mr. Tickle waited a minute and then reached in through the window. Mr. Tickle's extraordinary long arm went right up to the teacher, paused, and then tickled. The teacher jumped in the air and turned around very quickly to see who was there, but nobody was there. Mr. Tickle grinned a mischievous grin. He waited another minute and then tickled the teacher again. This time he kept tickling until the teacher was laughing and saying, stop it, over and over again. All of the children were laughing too at such a funny sight. There was a terrible pandemonium. Pandemonium is like when everybody goes crazy. It's out of control. Eventually, Mr. Tickle thought that he had enough fun, so he gave the teacher one more tickle for luck, and then very quietly brought his arm back through the window. Chuckling to himself, he jumped down from the window, leaving the poor teacher to explain what it was all about, which of course he couldn't. Then Mr. Tickle went to town. So the teacher is one character that we've seen, besides Mr. Tickle, who's the main character. And what a day Mr. Tickle had. He tickled the policeman on traffic duty in the middle of town. It caused an enormous traffic jam. He tickled the greengrocer just as he was piling apples neatly in his shop window. The greengrocer fell over backward, and the apples rolled all over the shop. So we have the greengrocer and the policeman as characters too. At the railroad station, the guard was about to wave his flag for the train to leave. As he lifted his arm in the air, Mr. Tickle tickled him. And every time he tried to wave his flag, Mr. Tickle tickled him until the train was 10 minutes late leaving the station, and all the passengers were furious. And there's also, we have the man that works at the railroad station. That day, Mr. Tickle tickled everybody. He tickled the doctor. He tickled the butcher. A butcher is somebody that works with meat. He even tickled old Mr. Stamp, the postman, who dropped all of his letters into a puddle. Then Mr. Tickle went home. Sitting in his armchair in his small house on the other side of the forest, he laughed and laughed every time he thought about all the people he had tickled. Looks like he's enjoying himself. So, if you are in any way ticklish, beware of Mr. Tickle and those extraordinary long arms of his. Just think, perhaps he's somewhere around at this very moment while you're reading this book. Perhaps that extraordinary long arm of his is already creeping up to the door of this room. Perhaps it's opening the door now and coming into the room. Perhaps before you know it, before you know what's happening, you will be really and truly tickled. And that's the end. So I bought the series for us to read until I can get back into the building. This is amazing. This whole series is amazing. The next book in our series is called Mr. Greedy. So I can't wait to read Mr. Greedy with you soon. Thank you, kids. Goodbye.
Take my course through the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. I'm gonna take my course through the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. Horses in the back, horses mad at town, and it's mad at horses back to man. Riding on my horse, moving on the coast. I'm in the very end of all that goes. Can't nobody tell me nothing. Nobody tell me nothing. Riding on my track, on my back, rolling down to the bottom with some room on the right. Can't nobody tell me nothing. Can't nobody tell me take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride. You sing it, you sing it. I'm gonna. That's good, that's good. Sing it, sing it, sing it. Yeah, I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't go. Head town, cross town, living like a rock star, spending all my money on my brand new kids. Baby's gotta have it done and making fancy sports. Running down all day with my Maserati sports. Now I'm $8 strip. I've been through all that. I'm a miracle man, so I kick it on back. You can take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride. One more time. Here we go. I'm gonna take my